A beautiful day indeed. Yes, I think the immediate one that we immediately got hold of was the parents who are concerned about the young children coming back to school. You will understand that the relationship of countries like Lesotho, the proximity is quite close. In as much as students are still allowed to do daily movements in and out of South Africa, some of them are worrying that they need to be accompanied because they do not trust the transport system that works on the other side, on the South Africa, to take them safely to school. Some of them are saying others will be going to the border, to the boarding school. Therefore, will be carrying loads and luggages and need the parental assistance to take them there. But I was recently told they cannot access. They will have to do a special permit from the minister to be able to cross the border. So these are little concerns because I think initially they were able to accompany their students to the other side, some even to take them back because of fear of the public transport, not knowing that they can actually follow the protocols of safety. That is where the problem was. So I got the response from the South African side that they can do a special request that they need to access or cross the border. Whether that process, the turnaround time, how long it will take, that is where I'm not still very sure.
We understand that this announcement has had some impact, especially but you've just mentioned it, schools as well. But the other area is the economic component of all those people who come to work in South Africa.
Very dramatic. I mean, it impacts directly. You'll understand it's been close to a year now that the movement has not been that flow. And these communities, most of them living on the proximities, they depend directly on accessing goods on the other side. Some people work on the South African side, others work on the Lesotho side. So they really depend on the daily movement. And it looks like they're still not capable. It means others need to make plans of living on the other side of the river. If you decide to stay in Lesotho, you'll be locked in Lesotho for that time. If you decide to stay on the South African side, you need to stick to the South African side. But there are also small traders who come to the farming towns in a Beitbridge to come and buy the fruits and vegetables. Most of them, these are things that you cannot keep for long. So most of them need to cross like 3 to 4 times a day. Those will be highly hampered in terms of traffic. So I think these are little things that people will have to brace and find measures and see. But at the same time, if the virus continue to spread as rapidly as it does, it is a question of whether are we able to save lives or are we also able to save livelihood.
Rapelang, we've seen recently a video of 2 women crossing the river with a coffin. What do we know about this story?
Yes. Unfortunately, this becomes scenes in a lot of districts inside Lesotho. This particular one you're referring to, it is an area called Qatasnek that is sharing the border with Matatiele. There is a hospital on the other side of the river. It's called Lebombo Hospital. It has been the case that when the rivers are full, there is no bridge whatsoever that connects that immediate communities. And they need to depend on that particular mode of transport, whereby they deploy a boat like this. At one point, the government was actually even paying people who are ferrying others to the other side of life. But for years and years, this has been the status quo. These people, this is their lives. If you can see the other one transporting the coffin to the other side, it's tragic. Now with an increased death rate that is hammering in Lesotho, there's an extreme concern as to how exactly this situation can be mitigated.
And just the other announcement the president made yesterday in terms of movement from the different countries. You yourself have covered the stories about the illegal crossings and not at border posts. What's the story there? What's the latest? Are there still numbers of people at these illegal crossings, and how is this being regulated?
Absolutely, Flo. I honestly would like to tell you I am not instigating anarchy or anything, but controlling movement between this neighboring town is almost an impossible task. The borders are porous. Most of these people have spent years with relationships of really moving freely between the two livelihoods. At other points, there's not even any visible wire that separates the two countries. And to suddenly say somebody who has a relative 2 kilometers away has become illegal becomes a mammoth task. I know there is a plan to give such neighbors a special type of identities which can really allow them to move freely. But until that happens, we know that there's a JBCC coming, which will also be looking deeply into this kind of scenarios. But I honestly think the business of trying to stop those neighboring towns from crossing onto the other side, sometimes the shepherd boys graze on the other side, that will be a case of a Tom and Jerry kind of situation, a cat and mouse chase. You will deport all of them. I promise you, in the next 2 days, half of those will be heading exactly right back. It's a mammoth task that needs a special kind of attention and relationship to actually look deeply to mitigate. Otherwise, you're going to turn ordinary citizens into criminals.
Have you been to the border post? What's the situation this morning?
I was yesterday. The traffic had subsided, but I think with a sudden announcement, there is going to be a bit of panic. Fortunately, people with special visas are still allowed to come back into South Africa. People with proper documentations are still allowed to travel through and through. But I think until the ministers actually give us the details as to what are the special dispensations, it becomes a little complicated for neighboring towns like this. But the good thing is that most of the traffic jam of people returning back to work had been cleared, except for people who had deliberately extended their stays on either side of the country, avoiding unnecessary congestions in the land ports entry. But otherwise, we are awaiting. It devastates. One would want to have thought that there would be a special arrangement or a special sitting for ministers of countries such as, your Botswana, your Lesotho, your Swaziland, immediate neighbors. I don't think a general application of international law should be applied to those. We understand they're members of SADC, but those are special conditions. Some go to school on the other side, some go to clinics on the other side. They just need to live cohabitantly. So I don't know. I think it takes leadership to actually delve deep and face the confronting and not just throw a blanket law that covers somebody who comes from Europe similarly to somebody who stays 2 kilometers on the other side of the bridge.
Thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
Thank you, Flo.
Rapelang there. Now,